Welcome back, everybody. Today we discuss the migrant gang, them looking over MS13. We're gonna explore all this. Shit's getting crazy. And it's not happening just in New York, Chicago, Oklahoma, dealing with this problem. And I gotta keep it 100. I'm pissed off about all this. But it's better to be pissed off than pissed on. But seriously, they're talking about their gang trained their Aragua linking up with the MS13. And it's a sophisticated system they got going on. These Venezuelans are different. They're not like that cornball Reyes. What up? Cause if there was a bunch of Reyes, we'd be alright. Oh shit, yo. Sit back, relax, and check this out. And everybody that pulled up, thank you, salute to y'all. This rap she hood book.
Adams is expanding a curfew for migrant shelters. Now 20 more centers will require migrants to be in by 11 at night.
These curfew changes coming as a teenager staying at one of the shelters was recently arrested after a shooting near Times Square. We told you all about that last week. Fox 5's Briella Tomasetti is live in Long Island City, Queens with the very latest. Good morning, Briella.
Yeah, Dennis Shani, good morning to both of you. So the shelter behind me houses nearly 1,000 single adult males and accounts for more than 25% of the migrants who will be impacted by this curfew. There will be exceptions, though, including for work, school, medical needs, and emergencies. Starting tonight, a citywide curfew will be expanded to 20 additional emergency shelters housing migrants, impacting roughly 3,600 asylum seekers. The 11 p.m. to 6 a.m. curfew is slated to take effect at 11 shelters in Manhattan, 4 in Queens, 3 in the Bronx, and 2 in Brooklyn. City officials placed a curfew on 4 shelters last month in response to neighborhood complaints. A spokesperson for the mayor's office says the curfew prioritizes the health and safety of both asylum seekers and New Yorkers and will allow for more efficient bed capacity management. But it comes amid a spate of migrant-related crime and violence. 15-year-old Jesus Rivas Figueroa was arraigned over the weekend on charges including attempted murder. According to the NYPD, the teen migrant from Venezuela opened fire Thursday night inside a sports store in Times Square after an employee caught him shoplifting, and then he fired again at officers who were closing in on him. The shooting left a 37-year-old woman injured. Last week, several migrant suspects were arrested on grand larceny charges in connection with a theft ring allegedly run by 30-year-old Victor Parra from Venezuela, who is still on the run. Investigators say Parra would send out messages via WhatsApp telling the group what to steal. Police say dozens of victims were robbed over the past 2 months. Meanwhile, Manhattan DA Alvin Bragg handed down 7 indictments to a group of migrants accused of assaulting 2 cops in Times Square on January 27th. The incident was caught on the officers' body cameras. Bragg initially faced backlash for letting some of the suspects walk without bail. His office is working to identify 3 more people believed to be involved. When this policy was first implemented last month, the city had said there would be consequences for not obeying the rules. For example, if you don't have an exemption, 3 strikes, and you could be kicked out. For now, we're live here in Long Island City. Dan Tashani, back to you.
I don't want them there. I don't want them there. I don't want them there.
But protests here are growing.
To have the government come in and dump 300 people right next door to me, it is not fair.
City leaders were asked once again about their plans to pay for the migrant crisis once the money runs out. New numbers show the city has spent a total of $194.5 million on migrant-related vendors since October of 2022.
We met these migrants sleeping outside a police station. Stephanie tells us she boarded a free bus in Texas because she thought Chicago had a refugee camp. Some of us have been here weeks, she said. She told us she's desperate for a job to support her 1-year-old son back in Venezuela.
Well, one of the things that I'm frustrated about is the fact that the Biden administration is not handling the migrant crisis in a way that it is good for them or the cities that the migrants are being sent to. I certainly don't want to demonize the migrants because not a lot of what is happening is their fault. I think that our mayor, our governor, as well as President Biden, has to step in and make some changes to what is happening right now.
Community leaders tell us they want to help migrants, but they're worried about resources for poor Chicagoans, too.
I'm concerned because of the slow response for the federal and state government.
And so what is happening here in Chicago is that we are seeing our city spend up to $48 million a month to house and take care of migrants. Now, when you talk about the Black communities here in the city of Chicago, and you talk about the years of disinvestment in our communities, in our schools, and all around us, and you see this amount of money being spent, right now it seems as if our borders are just open and that people are freely coming in and that there are no laws that are being followed in terms of immigration.
Of being involved in this beating of 2 NYPD officers in Times Square. Remember, 6 suspects were arrested and charged, but only 1 was held on cash bail. Police sources had told us some of the 5 who were released left New York to head to the California-Mexico border, rather.
The Latino Pilsen neighborhood was the first to build a shelter for migrants, and they're now preparing a new shelter to take up to 1,000 more.
A wave of migrant crime has washed over our city. They're essentially ghost criminals. No criminal history, no photos, no cell phone, no social media. Sometimes we're even unclear on a name or a date of birth. And on top of that, these operations are extremely sophisticated. They intentionally try to evade the police.
Democratic Party, we're watching you.
Yeah.
We are disappointed. We are angry.
Yeah.
We are offended. And we feel like we're being mistreated, misused, and disrespected. We will not continue to be disrespected by the Democratic Party. As I said yesterday, and I'll say today and tomorrow, if you're an independent candidate, Green Party candidate, Republican candidate, now is your time in this city.
Who's been in the office since May of last year. Remember, he replaced Lori Lightfoot as mayor of Chicago. He was supposed to go down to the border and see for himself in October, but he canceled and he sent a deputy mayor. Well, he was asked yesterday by another reporter, hey, when are you going to go? And listen to what he had to say to that reporter about why the mayor is not going. He's got a really good reason. Listen.
The Federal Reserve Bank of New York just issued a digital dollar, effectively replacing paper money with nothing more than a government-controlled computer.
If you hit skip, I got you.
Do you understand that you have not had a mayor like me? I get that. I have a wife, I have children, they have schedules, and plus, we still have public safety that we have to address. We still have the unhoused that we have to address. I still have a budget that I have to address. And I'm doing all of that with a Black wife raising 3 Black children on the west side of the city of Chicago. I am going to the border as soon as possible. But I got to coordinate that with running the government and making sure that my wife and children are secure as well. Thank you, Lauren.
I don't know that they can get my vote back. I think that one of the biggest problems with this whole situation is when this started, I called my congressman, I called my step representative, I called my state senator, I called our Cook County commissioner, and I tried to sit down to meet with them. I even called our mayor, and I wanted to sit down and talk to them to find out if there was just something that I was missing, if there was some information that I needed in order to make me sit comfortably with what was happening. And nobody had time to sit down with me. Nobody had time to meet with me to discuss this issue. And so as important as this issue has become to the Black community, and the fact that our mayor, who I know, whom I supported, whom I donated money to his campaign, has not bothered to pick up the phone and to call me and to talk to me about what's happening, is a slap in the face for me. And so, no, I cannot support people who will not support me and my community.
In a migrant briefing this week,
to figure out what the long-term plan is to get through the calendar year together.
Democratic Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker slamming President Biden for not doing enough, writing, "The federal government's lack of intervention and coordination at the border has created an untenable situation for Illinois." The White House blaming Congress for not acting and saying they've accelerated work permits and provided $1 billion to cities nationwide.
A few days ago, the city amended their contract with Favored Staffing for a second time. Now their contract is for approximately $150 million over the course of 1 year. Notable because in the city's budget, $150 million is the same number allocated for the entire fiscal year. The city is hoping the state continues to pay and the federal government will step in.
Attacking New York City police officers last week over by Times Square. Remember this? Well, sources tell Fox News that several of those people in these images,
plus another group of migrants have been arrested for allegedly dragging a woman down a New York City street. As they stole her purse.
Madeline Rivera joins us right now with the latest developments. Update us, won't you?
But the problem still exists, and they're affecting everyone. And they don't have, some of those kids don't have dads in their life to deal with those issues.
Mom's holding down 2 jobs.
Exactly.
Look,
can't afford daycare.
We all have kids. We all have busy schedules.
Yeah.
But if you're going to run for mayor, you got to do the job.
The NYPD separately also arresting 7 migrants in an early morning raid in the Bronx Monday, whom officers say were behind a robbery ring in the city. Investigators say the suspects would ride up behind victims on stolen mopeds, mostly women walking alone, and snatch their phones and purses. The NYPD telling Fox New Yorkers and tourists must stay vigilant. Now it appears, based on what multiple ICE sources are telling us, that at least some of their journeys were cut short, with some suspects being arrested at a Greyhound bus station in Phoenix Monday. Here's New York City Mayor Eric Adams.
Tracking the cost of migrant crashes in Chicago, Chicago officials say spike is expected in migrant arrivals. How will it be paid for? Chicago is grappling with a surge in migrant arrival, with over 13,000 asylum seekers currently housed in city shelters. As officials anticipate a potential spike in numbers, concerns arise regarding the city's ability to finance the growing migrant mission. The expenditure into cases involving city spending.
Migrants from Venezuela into the United States. In the last fiscal year, there have been like 340,000. 2 guys on a moped will go onto a sidewalk in Manhattan. Encounters at the U.S. southern border with Venezuelan migrants. So we've seen a spate of some very brazen cell phone robberies in New York City that's been attributed to a Venezuelan gang called Tren de Aragua, which has its origins at a prison.
We don't have the tax base to handle it. It's a money pit, and you guys are responsible for our money.
Among those, Border Patrol has apprehended 41 Tren de Aragua gang members. Law enforcement says they are infiltrating cities in the United States and may be forming alliances with gangs that are already established here.
You guys are famous for screwing things up.
And a lot of them have come over within this surge of migrants from Venezuela into the United States. Outside of Caracas, a number of the gang members escaped. Outside of Caracas, a number of the gang members escaped in September 2023 when the Venezuelan government raided the prison. In the last fiscal year, there have been like 340,000 encounters at the U.S. southern border with Venezuelan migrants. So that all of your apps are open, and then they take it back to a gang leader in the Bronx where, a hacker goes through and drains people's bank accounts. The phones are then bundled up and sent to Colombia where they're resold.
Residents say their hard-earned tax dollars are going toward migrants and that resources are simply being overwhelmed. Alicia Cunha in Denver on this tug-of-war and where it goes next.
We're seeing the presence of Tren Yaragua in New York City. We're seeing the presence of Tren Yaragua in New York City. We're seeing all these brazen cell phone robberies where two guys on a moped will go onto a sidewalk in Manhattan, or two guys on a moped will go onto a sidewalk in Manhattan and they will steal a cell phone out of the hands of somebody who's actually talking on the phone. This is important because if you're talking on the phone, your phone is open. So the guy on the back of the scooter just keeps tapping the phone.
Good morning, Bill. Yeah, the crowd was at capacity at the Lakewood City Council meeting last night. This is a community of roughly 154,000 people, about 7 miles west of Denver. And folks who live in that suburb came out to voice concerns over actions they say their city is taking amid worry it could lead to an influx of immigrants. This as the city voted on a housing plan and whether or not to accept a $9.3 million grant for a, quote, navigation center for the unhoused.
Don't screw it up.
You're going to incentivize something that you're not going to be able to deal with long term.
The citizens of Lakewood are drowning, and you're all talking about adding more water.
Everybody's taxes are going to end up going up, and the crime is going to become incredible, just like New York City.
Worse, both the housing plan and a navigation center and any other social resource may in fact support people who have immigrated here. I cannot build a wall between us and Denver. That's not City Council's job.
We just want a coordinated entry system. We want the country to be able to work collaboratively to figure out where migrants should arrive and where there's capacity.
And in an interview today in the New York Times, he was talking about how he met a migrant who said, I don't want to beg on the street. I want a job. They can't give them jobs. And also providing jobs would provide more incentive for them to come.
Because you're scared you'll get shot, just like happened in the Bronx last night. Then you're scared to go to Times Square. I remember we had a birthday party in Times Square, the movie theater, and I was really nervous about walking through there with my child.
But it's just so, it's so diabolical. This Venezuelan gang looked at what's happening in this country and said, you know what? We got a way to make a lot of money. And that is why they're here. And that is what they're doing.
And we're terrified of, it was Subway, ATM, so many different fears that we all are going through. And these are things that you never used to think about. You shouldn't have to think about when you're in your city.
But the problems expand far beyond that. With an increase in robberies perpetrated by migrants on scooters, we are now learning that the attacks may be coordinated and linked to large crime groups. One migrant telling the Post, quote, "It's much bigger than me. In a million years, I never thought you'd catch me. I've been going to Miami every 3 weeks, and it's much bigger than me."
So as you see, Chicago with a noise, New York City, Colorado is all being affected. And what about the money? What about us that been here? Just saying, man. Thanks for watching, man. Salute.